You'll see it fairly often online. Pathfinder 2nd Edition is hard for new players or GMs who like to improvise because there's so many little feats that block off improvisation, you have to learn them all. Discussions and debates pop up around this topic all the time, and I've seen several in the past few months. We're here today to help with that. The key takeaway is not to let the feats get in the way of your improvising, and today we're going to show you how.
Pathfinder has two sections in the rules specifically on improvising. The quick rules for improvising an activity are probably the most relevant in encounters. Basically, you can make something take one action or two actions if it feels like something that shouldn't happen 3 times per round. If it seems like it would always succeed, great, go for it. And if it seems like if it's something that wouldn't always succeed, you can find an appropriate check to make to determine whether it succeeds or fails. Another thing to consider is whether this improvised idea is powerful enough that the players are going to just try to use that every single time instead of the other options they have available to them. In which case, the improvising rules suggest that you can say, this will work this time. It's really cool. We'll make it work. Or that you're going to allow it now and think about what to do later if it turns out that they want to keep doing that again and again.
This framework for improvising is all well and good, but what about the times that something I might want to improvise already exists in a feat? Or some folks say, there's a feat for that. I'm here to tell you, having written many of the feats we're talking about here, as well as worked on the improvisation rules in Pathfinder 2, the feats are not meant to prevent you from trying things without the feats. They're meant to be a more efficient, reliable, and repeatable way of doing things. Often, when this is discussed online, people will reference an answer I gave on a Reddit AMA and a corroborating statement Mike Sayer made on social media where we both say that you can and should definitely allow players to try things without the feats, perhaps with a penalty or harder DC, a worse action economy. That's all and well and good that I said that, but I didn't give you the tools to decide how to adjudicate this.
Let's take a look at group coercion, which is a skill feat that is one of the most commonly cited as potentially blocking off improvisation. It allows you to coerce increasingly large groups of creatures at the same time without a penalty and with a single skill check. That doesn't mean that if you need to coerce 5 people without the feat, you're completely out of luck. There's a few ways to handle this. The first is time. If you spend more time on the coercion attempt, you can coerce the group by essentially spending enough time to roll separate checks on each individual.
The other way you might be able to handle it is via the DC. If you need to coerce a larger group quickly at the same time and you don't have special training, that should be harder. Psychologically, a large group of like-minded people feels safe in numbers, and it would be harder to threaten them to act in a certain way in front of all their peers. You're just one person trying to coerce them. Without the feat, you might consider applying the hard DC modifier of +2 for a few creatures, the very hard modifier of +5 for a larger group, and the extremely hard DC modifier of +10 for an especially large or for a cohesively disciplined group.
That math also strangely lines up with some of the math for troops. If you were trying to coerce a single Hell Knight Armiger with a will save of +6 modifier, the DC would be 16. But a Hell Knight Cavalry troop is a single creature that represents a cohesive, organized squadron of Hell Knights. And they have a +16 will save modifier for a coerce DC of 26, which that's 10 higher. It's exactly in line with the extremely hard DC modifier.
Our advice is nice when you're aware of the feat in advance, when you're trying to improvise. But for some folks, they're most afraid that feats will get in the way of improvisation for a new group, because of the specter of a feat that no one was aware of when you made the ruling, and you only learn about it later after the game is over. What if you improvised a ruling and your ruling was basically the same as what the feat allowed in the first place, or worse, your ruling was actually more lenient than what the feat normally allows? Now, what I'm about to say might be more controversial than the previous advice, which mainly relies on the official rules of Pathfinder 2 for improvising, but I'm going to tell you a secret. You don't need to worry about that either.
If you find out later that there's a feat that covers the same situation and that you've just seen and the feat is similar or stricter to how you rolled without the feat, you have a few options. You can gauge, first of all, either yourself or together with your group, how the improvised ruling worked for your game. Did it seem like it was about right already? Might it be better to make it a little harder next time and ask the players to take the feat to get the full benefit? You can decide which way works best.
That means that if your group wants to make something that normally works via feat universal for every character, that's okay. And you could even make it so that taking the feat makes it even more powerful than that. If you change your mind later, that's okay too.
Tailoring content for your group is part of what makes tabletop RPGs great, and handing out some small skill feat benefits to everyone for free is really unlikely to be the kind of house rule that's going to throw things off in your game in the same way that you would want to be much more careful about tinkering with action economy or the math of bonuses.
Even giving out a strong skill feat like continual recovery for medicine isn't going to break your game. In fact, the original version of Treat Wounds during the playtest didn't have the 1 hour timer at all. And its inclusion with a skill feat to remove the timer was a compromise due to some playtesters who aesthetically didn't like how quickly you could heal up with a universal 10-minute Treat Wounds. That suggests that if your group doesn't have the same concerns, you might be fine giving that benefit to everyone. The same sort of logic applies with many other skill feats as well.
That being said, if you're considering giving out feat benefits for free or easing up on improvised actions, it makes sense to let your players know that you've chosen this to give additional benefits and ease things up, and that you're going to watch how the house rule impacts the game and possibly change it up if there's a problem. Chances are you won't have to, but if you tell them in advance, hey, I'm trying out a house rule, it avoids a situation where someone really leans into that idea, and then if you later walk it back, they have the rug pulled out from them under them unexpectedly.
Also, if you do make a change later, you should strongly consider allowing some free retraining without spending downtime to go pick up the feat that you added back in if they want to still be able to use it.
Absolutely. We hope this helps you feel more confident in improvising rules around situations that might also have feats to handle them. Please like and subscribe, and let us know if you'd like to see more of this kind of content on our channel. And if you hear from someone who's worried about trying out Pathfinder 2nd Edition for fear that all the feats might make it too difficult to improvise rulings to run the game without encyclopedic knowledge, you can link them to this video to help explain. Or if you want some more examples in actual play, you can see a video of Mark here in action, improvising rulings on the fly for 3 brand new players who didn't know the Pathfinder 2nd Edition rules in advance by clicking on the link in the description below.
Thanks, and goodbye.